Hi, this is Abhimanyu, and I'm in conversation with Ayesha Sood, director of Netflix's latest true crime documentary. Ayesha, first of all, it's a very different subject, and it's a little in the past, but not as much in the past, so that people are not aware about it. So, how did you come across it?
Vice and Netflix got together to make a series called Indian Predator.
Right.
They had a pool of stories that they came to me with, and there's a process of elimination because you have to filter like what are the stories that are strongest to tell, most compelling, where the characters are alive. You have enough documentation, case files, archival. So through a process of elimination, we got down to this was one of the leading ones.
Right.
And also this was 2020. So, travel, etc. to different parts is quite like, it was like unimaginable almost at that time. So this happens, I mean, the story takes place, a lot of it takes place in Delhi. So it was one of the reasons why I also sort of moved towards it.
The most difficult aspect of this is not to get the police officials and the authorities, because there, of course, we will talk about it, but the families and the families of course, the accused, the convict, and the victims as well. How difficult was it to get the families of, let's say, an Anil Mandal or someone on board and get them to speak with you? Because nobody wants to relive that trauma.
Yeah, it was quite difficult. I mean, also, we only got Anil Mandal's family on board. So, you can tell from the interview as well, like their lives are so tough and this has been so traumatic and they've been made to run around as well. Like they are not interested in bringing this stuff up. They want to move on with their lives, so it's tough, but we had a really strong team, and we built our relationships and we took time to take pre-interviews and build trust, and I mean, I think all that pays off eventually.
How do you make sure that something like this doesn't get a glorifying the convict, be exploitative of the victims, because it can very easily cross that line if you don't handle it very sensitively. So what was that line for you?
I mean, I think that you have to be mindful of that as a filmmaker, like you have to make sure that the way you are presenting it, the way you are talking about it, does so much as you want it to do for the narrative, and doesn't go across that line. I think if you feel, you trust your instinct and you trust your gut on a lot of these things, but you also have a lot of people who work together with you, so you have the teams who are editing with you, you have people at Vice, you have people in Netflix. So it's very much a collaborative, that comes together and you're like, okay, these are the boundaries that we want to set and these are the things that we want to like push. And it's an open and healthy dialogue and you do it together.
Right. So of course that collaboration helps because it has to be a consensus, cannot be like a one-person show. So you get varying inputs and insights there. Were you familiar with Chandrakant Jha's story before you came on board? Were you ever did you remember reading about it or not? Because I wasn't surprised with that. Because I was in Delhi at that time, but I don't remember it, which is surprising.
Actually, yeah, this is, I mean, actually, this is one of the reasons why I was so interested in it, because, I actually made a podcast on the Arushi crimes. So I studied a lot of the crimes around that time. And being a Delhi resident, I hadn't heard of this. So I was actually like, wow, okay, such an audacious, brutal crime. And we missed it. So
I think for me, partly it was because of the profiles of the victims as well as the convict. If Arushi is upper middle class in our homes, so it gets talked about. These are Bihari migrants, nobody wants to talk about.
No, exactly right. Invisible man who is killing invisible people. So,
exactly. So for me, the show is also a sort of a take on the class divide of India. Because
I mean, that is exactly one of the main threads that we tried to like pull at, when we were making it. It was actually exactly the reason why we wanted to do it.
Do you think he would have ever gotten caught if he hadn't sent a letter to the police? Because these bodies would have been just not an indictment on the police here or anything, but it's just that sometimes the workload is so much in a force like Delhi police, where he's saying that there are 500 murders a year. That's 1.5 murder per day. You cannot get around to all of them. And of course, they prioritize. They have to sort of this. So do you think his brazenness is what got him caught?
I think he wanted to get caught. So, I mean, I think he, everything that he's doing is kind of telling us that this is like, hey, look at me.
Look at me.
He's definitely, I mean, it's definitely rooted in identity,
Yeah, I think it's the invisible man trying not to be invisible. That's
Exactly.
what it is.
Yeah.
You, of course, tried to get through to Chandrakant, but because of the jail procedures and imposed, and his family too. Did you get any sort of feedback from that side, the family or Chandrakant?
We did actually, and they are not keen to come on the record. They're not keen to talk about it. It's too tragic and too brutal for them as well. So we had to respect their wishes.
Well, that's totally valid and so totally perfect. I wanted to ask, because since you have followed true crime, I consider myself a true crime nut, so I know that. And I, like, from Anne Rule to everyone, I've been reading them for 15 years. This concept of serial killers was largely Western. Of course, there was Thug Behram here in the 1800s, but we didn't call them serial killers as such. But it has now gained a lot more prominence over the last 20, 30 years in India. Not as much as in the West, because it's just crazy out there. What has been the reason for this proliferation? Do you see this as because of media giving them names? Because suddenly we have the CC killer and the butcher of Delhi and this and that, and they get glamorized by it and they want that identity? Does that happen?
No, okay. So I think it's a function of a bunch of things that happen, right? It's like we have not the best record of documentation and interdepartmental work, right? So, for example, like one of the police officers even tells you, we do not have a national database of, right? So when you cannot connect crimes,
True.
then it becomes really tough to even say, is it a serial killer at work, right?
Because you don't have that pattern at hand. Yeah.
You don't have that. Then the other thing is that I think, as you mentioned earlier, like our numbers are just so huge, like just so huge. Just the workload in like trying to like connect the dots and make sure that it's all like in a certain pattern. It's a serial killer, that it's it's tough. It's really tough. It's tough for any police force. Forget a police force that's working in multiple states.
Right.
So I think it's just that I don't think it's that like we don't have serial killers. I think we definitely do have serial killers. I think the documentation is not there.
What shocked you the most when you unraveled Chandrakant's story? Because what shocked me the most was the photo album. I just could not fathom that the numbers could be these much. I knew for a fact that he was arrested for 7 and sentenced for 3. But then I see the numbers, and the numbers he has been claiming 44, 45. And that sort of, I was taken aback by that. What was it that shocked you when you first started unraveling this?
Many things, I think the sheer brutality of what he did and how he did it was really shocking to me. That he did it in the face of the police in their backyard at Tihar went unnoticed. And then I think, when you talk about the photographs and the conversations with the villagers, I think what was really shocking was the kind of power and control and fear he had over everybody. It's not easy to hold captive grown men, and do this repeatedly. So I think just all of that was really shocking.
Was there anything that you wanted to depict, show, but you could not, maybe because of lack of time or maybe because you thought it might be insensitive?
I mean, I think it would have been really important to have him on it. And we weren't able to do that for many reasons. But I would have loved to hear from him,
Sort of get inside the head of the man of how.
I mean, not even inside. I just want to hear his side of the story as well,
Of course, like you said, the Indian fairy is likely to continue in a different, sort of with different stories and everything. Why did you start with this one in particular? Like you said, you had a short list, but this one was it because of Delhi and the sort of time period that it was?
Yeah, it was the fact that it was Delhi. I mean, the decision to start with it is between Netflix and Vice, and like there's a production schedule, and we all like, there were pandemics, there was farmer protests, we got shut down, there was a Delta wave, many things happened through the making of this. So actually it's just like about, I think which one got ready first. Yeah.
Why? And my final question to wrap it up is, why is there such fascination with true crime in the world, not even just India? Because whenever we have something true crime, whether it's documentary, whether it's fiction, suddenly the people who don't even watch crime, probably who don't even watch news which are about crime, they tend to sit up and watch it. What is this fascination that you see?
I mean, I can't speak for everyone, but I can speak for myself, which is that, I think true crime is born of the society and the world that we live in, right? Like it's born out of our families, our social structures, our cities. So, I mean, I think that immediately is very interesting because you're like on a human level, you are like, oh, okay, what is happening here? What does this open up for me? What is it telling me? And I think immediately those are the kind of stories that are compelling and people want to know more. Like, how does this happen? So I think that's why.
I think there's no suspension of disbelief there because it's just right there. You don't have
Yeah.
to go and suspend your disbelief in any sort of.
Yeah.
This has been nice talking to you. Quite educative, I must say. And looking
Thank you,
forward to
Vinny.
seeing more of it. And thank you for speaking, Ayesha.
Thank
Catch you soon.
you. Thank you.